Hello and welcome to the Longevity Strong Podcast. I have an amazing guest that I'm super excited for her to share her story with you. She is a personal trainer and she is a co-host on the Mindful Muscle Podcast. Jodi empathizes with the beginner in the fitness journey because diet culture and the fitness myths that are endless are just so overwhelming when you're beginning your fitness journey. So I'm so excited for Jodi to bust some of those myths and to help you on your journey. Welcome, Jodi. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, samesies. So Jodi, let's start by just diving into your area of expertise. Tell me a little bit about what you love in fitness and what you love teaching as far as fitness goes.
Back in September, I got my certification as a personal trainer, and October, I became a nutritionist, certified nutritionist / fitness coach. And what I love about it is because I was a beginner, I feel like I can give somebody hope that they can do it. I'm living proof. Because I know when you go into a gym, sometimes as a beginner, you look at some of the trainers and you just assume they cannot relate to you at all. And I'm here to bust that. Like, we all started somewhere, and I'm definitely one of those people that, I was not born with muscles. I used to say things like, I have no upper body strength, and I am a completely different story than 20-some-year-old version of me or 30-some-year-old version of me.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your story and how you got into fitness. What led you down this path?
Sure. In 2017, I started feeling heart palpitations. I was only 35 years old at the time, and I was about 231 pounds. So I went to the doctor and I was diagnosed with high blood pressure. I was connected to an EKG machine just to make sure I didn't do damage to my heart. Fortunately, I didn't, but I left that appointment in absolute tears. I grew up with a father that was in and out of the hospital constantly. He had two different types of cancer. He was an amputee. He had diabetes and so on and so forth. So I didn't want my two boys to experience that childhood of watching a parent deteriorate. And also, I didn't want them repeating my unhealthy habits and then finding themselves in similar shoes later on in life. So that is what started my story. It was a day that terrified me to no end. I'm definitely a person that hates change. It makes me anxious. And this was definitely a huge change on the horizon. So that is why I started.
Okay. So tell us how. So what did you start with? So you were terrified of the changes to come. And then, so you were a beginner, right? So you experienced all of this crazy and chaos, mixed information. So what did that look like for you?
When I first started, I had a small group of friends that were also trying to lose weight. So I had accountability right there. So that was very helpful. But I would go to the gym and I was too scared to use a personal trainer. I was too scared to be there. But fortunately, my health scare was stronger than that gym anxiety. So I forced myself to go in, but I didn't know what I was doing. I would just wander around the gym and look for a piece of equipment that didn't scare me. And free weights was not an option. Like, that was terrifying in itself. So, but after a month, the most I lost was 5 pounds. And when you're 230 some pounds, 5 pounds in a month is not a lot. So I decided to hit pause on the fitness and focus on nutrition. I think that's what holds people up. Sometimes they are trying to change a lifetime of unhealthy habits overnight all at once. And I decided to step back and focus on nutrition. So at the time, I signed up for Weight Watchers. It's not that I advocate for them at all. I just happened to have two girlfriends at the time that were doing it. So we had that accountability there. So maybe a year and a half later is when I decided to tackle on fitness.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, yeah. So tell me some of the habits that you picked up from Weight Watchers. What were some of the nutrition habits that you took away?
I did focus on eating more high nutrient dense foods. Just, you don't realize how much you're putting on your plate until you actually pay attention to the serving size. So I think that helped me as well. But I think because of my health scare, like, you get on the scale sometimes and the number goes up, where past Jodi would have saw that and said, well, obviously this isn't working and give up. But that health
Yeah.
scare really prevented me from quitting on myself.
Oh, I love that. And sometimes it takes that adversity, right? Sometimes it takes like being pushed in the right direction. And that's actually, so what I teach is observation. When I have a new client come on, I just have them send me photos of what they're eating. And it's scary enough to send their trainer a photo that they kind of start like making different choices, right? Because you're like just more conscious of what you're doing. So,
Yep.
so there's a tip for you. If you start coaching people one-on-one and you're coaching them with nutrition, have them send you photos, because it's like, I'm not really big into calorie counting, and I'm not big into diet culture. And we can talk about some of those myths and some of those things that are told to us about food that are just absolutely wrong. But I think our bodies know what they need. And if we listen a little bit better, then we can follow that. And the other side of that is being a female, right? Being a female, you can't go in a linear path. We can't. I take that back. We can totally take a linear path, but it's not really beneficial. We need different nutrients throughout our cycle. And so understanding that, riding the wave and going into that, it's really, really important. Okay. So it started with Weight Watchers. You lost how much weight with Weight Watchers?
I'm not, maybe 80 some with Weight Watchers. I'm now at 90 pounds, but 2 years ago,
God,
2 years ago, I joined a nutrition accountability challenge through my CrossFit gym, and it was 90 days. And one of the stipulations was you had to give up something for 90 days. And, people were giving up like chocolate or other vices. So I'm like, you know what? I've been told by other people into lifting heavy that Weight Watchers is not a good idea. You can't properly fuel your body accordingly. But I was scared because, we were just coming out of COVID, and like I clung to that plan because I knew it. When we were dealing with so much uncertainty and change, I needed that comfort of something that I knew and that I could control. But I decided that was a perfect opportunity to give up Weight Watchers and focus on calorie counting and actually looking at my protein. And it was crazy. After 1 week, I noticed my energy went way up. I just assumed that I was always tired because I train all the time and I'm over 40 and I have 2 kids. But yeah, it was me inadvertently eating too low carb on Weight Watchers to save points.
Okay.
And I also noticed my relationship with food got better because there were high nutrient dense foods that I was avoiding on Weight Watchers because they were too many points, like avocado. I forgot how much I love avocado. And it's like, wow. Nobody should fear high nutrient dense foods or any food, but still it's even more silly to me when it's something grown in nature and I'm terrified of eating it. That's not good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The whole like cutting out a whole food group, even like cutting out fats or cutting out carbs or whatever it is, cutting out meat. We need things for our body to function well. And the carbs are such a high energy source. So it's cool that you recognize that and had the self-realization through that. Okay, so you gave up Weight Watchers for your gym.
And never look back.
Okay. And so where did your focus go after that? When you started to look at nutrition and you're focusing more on your macros, on your calorie intake, what was your focus at that point?
And it still is today, but more so protein. I was focused a lot on protein and let the other 2 macros fall where they may. Currently now it's protein and fiber. I focus a lot on fiber. I'm a nerd when it comes to nutrition. I'm that wife that says, are you eating enough fiber, sweetheart? You know you're supposed to eat 38 grams a day.
Oh, that's awesome.
But it makes a big difference in your life with keeping you full. I think that's another reason why diets fail. You're starving. Well, if you're eating a lot of protein and eating a lot of fiber, you're pretty satiated for the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go a little deeper into that. How did your family's life transition as you made these transitions?
Yeah, my poor husband, like when I met him, I was making things with like buttermilk and cream, and like I totally rickrolled him now that now I'm like the gym queen when I wasn't before. But Like my kids, I laugh because my youngest is 10. He is on the spectrum and he now goes to adaptive CrossFit in our community. And every time we go to class, he's like flexing his muscles. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, that's my fault. He's my kid. But I love that he's like that because I want fitness to be a normal thing to both my kids. But it's going to be even easier for him because I don't think he remembers mom before the health scare.
Okay. So are both of your boys into fitness now, or just the one son?
Just the one for now. But
For now.
the oldest is 13, so we're getting it to that age where he might care. I try not to push fitness on either of them because I don't want to introduce a potentially unhealthy relationship. But they know. I know my oldest said to me he didn't want me going to a parent-teacher conference at his school. I said, why? What did you do? And he's like, well, last time you were at my school, Mom, my teacher came back and went, your mom is jacked. I'm like, I'm a woman. And the fact that I have muscles is, that's not as easy as people realize. So you're a guy. So you keep that in mind when you hit that age, and you might want to look into building muscle because your mom can help you.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. So I think like a lot of what I talk about with my clients is the fact that habits started so young. They started at a young age, and being conscious about your kids now and not instilling disordered eating patterns or forcing them to do any kind of like specifically for aesthetics, right? It's like, that's not really the point. The benefit is that you look that way, right? People see you and they're amazed by the work that you put in. When I saw your before and after picture, I was like, holy shit, bro. Oh my God. Like, you look amazing, and it's clear that you put in so much work. So take me through some of those myths that you discovered along the way, whether it's with nutrition or maybe with fitness, and that you've discovered maybe even in the CrossFit realm. I was in CrossFit like at the very beginning of my journey, and it's such a tight-knit community. It's really cool. I think that's like the thing that I love the most about it. But tell me what you've learned through your fitness journey.
It's funny that when I first started going to the gym, I was terrified of what people might think. Had those, those gym videos where people are being mean to each other. Knock on wood, I've never had that happen. Real gym culture, everybody's rooting for each other. Either they're in their own head because they're focused on their workout, or they're rooting for you. Like, I feel like it's one or the other, and it's not a scary place at all. And like one of my friends at the gym, my first day at that gym, he went out of his way to introduce himself to me. And he's like that with every single person. So everybody feels welcome. And another friend of mine pointed out something like, the bravest person at the gym isn't the person lifting the most weights. It's the person that is there for the first time when it's out of their element, it's change, and they're showing up for themselves. Even though they're not sure what they're supposed to be doing, they are showing up for themselves. That is the bravest person at the gym.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always talk about how motivation doesn't come first, right? It takes some level of willpower to walk in those doors, to just get yourself there. So yeah, you're totally right. And it's so beautiful that you had such a welcoming experience, and it makes such a big difference. So anybody that is already in the gym and that is a gym goer that's listening, hopefully you hear this and you realize that like how important it is to welcome those New Year's resolutioners, because maybe you'll be the change in their life. It takes one person saying hi, right? Making that welcoming environment to make it okay to be there, to feel comfortable. And then you have a familiar face that you can go to, and you don't even have to say hi every single time, but just knowing that that person had your back for a second, like that's so cool. Okay.
Exactly.
So you walk into the gym for the first time. No, you started with fitness, and then you scaled back, you went to nutrition, and then you went back into fitness. So when you went back into fitness, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you went back into the fitness world, did you dive right into CrossFit, or did you go back to the gym? Where did you dive in at that point?
I've stuck with Planet Fitness, and it's when I use the app Fitbod. It's a workout app where it shows you what to do. So you can put in your goals, your fitness level, what equipment's available to you, and it shows you what to do. So with me being as scared and shy as I was and not wanting to being too afraid to talk to anybody, it was nice to have something holding my hand. And then in 2018 or 2019, a local high interval gym opened up in my area. So, and I won a free membership for like 6 months. So that gave me an option to, meet people in the community and also learn more about equipment that I saw at the gym, but I was too scared to use it. But I had somebody like be able to show me how to use it. And then from there, I decided to try CrossFit. And my very first day at CrossFit, I was able to check off something off my fitness bucket list, which was to flip a tire. And I'm like, okay, I need to sign up for this. I'm like, this is fantastic. And I love that, like you said, it's a close-knit community. I love that my coach looks out for me. He will correct my form, but he's not condescending at all. And it's okay if you can't do everything exactly to the workout. We all have those days. My best today might not look like the same tomorrow. My best is going to fluctuate from day to day, and that's okay. There's always something I could modify if I need to.
Oh, I love that you said that, because so my experience with CrossFit was not as good. My coach was not as, it was good in the fact that it was getting me moving and I had the community and that in that aspect. But it was more of the push, 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 push. And it was more of like pushing weight loss instead of getting stronger, instead of having that proper form. And this is where it like left a bad taste in my mouth, right? Seeing me and all these people in this room throwing our bodies around, potentially creating injuries in our body, but because we're doing intense workouts, right? And so it's really cool to hear that your coach is so on it and helping you with like just staying on track. Because I think that's the important thing. Anybody that has a personal trainer, hopefully your trainer's paying attention to what you're doing. And not to, actually, I am going to shit on big box trainers. It's like when I see people, personal trainers at these big box gyms, and they're scrolling on their phone, not watching their client. If you have a trainer like that, please fire them and find someone who is more equipped to actually be with you in that moment, because your body, this is the only vessel that we get. Right. And I actually heard an analogy recently that was like, if you only had one car to drive for the rest of your life, how much would you prioritize taking care of that car? Right. And it's like we get this one body and we have the opportunity to pour it into it, to make it healthier, to make it happier. And so actually, let's lean into that a little bit. How has your mental health changed since you got healthier?
It's funny. Like I do struggle with anxiety, and I had no idea just how beneficial it could be towards my anxiety. It's not a substitute if somebody needs counseling. In fact, I've been in counseling for the last year and a half, but exercise still has helped alleviate some of those anxiety symptoms for me. And I was somebody, when I started getting consistent towards the beginning of fitness, when I would go more to 2 or 3 days without movement, I felt more anxious. And that was the last time I went that long, unless I was actually sick or on vacation because of that. Because I'm like, man, this stinks.
Yeah. It makes a big difference when you're moving your body regularly. So let's go into your podcast a little bit. You have a podcast with Gio, and you guys talk about mindful muscle, which I really love the name in that. And it's associated with F5, correct?
Correct.
So tell me more about both of those things.
Sure. Yeah. Gio is a good friend of mine, and I met him through the FitBod community. And the first conversation I had with him was when he was a podcast host on a different podcast interviewing me and my story. And we just hit it off. Both of us have lost a lot of weight later in life, and we've been able to keep it off, which is not the normal statistic. Most people that lose a significant amount of weight gain it back. And him and I have been able to maintain it. And it's about 140 pounds between the two of us that we've been able to lose and maintain.
Wow.
And both of us have seen a difference in our mental health as well from prioritizing health. And we want to help people. We want to show people that it is possible to make changes in your life. So that is why we started Mindful Muscle. I don't think people realize that mental health is health. You can't just focus on the physical and be healthy. You can't sacrifice your mental health or you'll never find happiness. It won't matter how much weight you lose, how much weight you lift. If you're neglecting your mental health, you're always going to be miserable chasing something else.
So you guys both connected on that side of things as far as evolving your life and finding the happiness factor with the health factor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of us get caught up in the aesthetics part of fitness, right? We want to lose weight. That's what a lot of people come to me for, is like, oh, I want to lose weight or I want to gain weight, some people. And my goal through my program is to help them realize that it's a lifestyle change. It's not necessarily about losing weight quickly, because one, it's not sustainable typically to lose weight super quickly. Everybody wants instant gratification, but then we don't keep it when we don't build those habits. So tell me about some of the habits that you've created outside of the gym and nutrition. What other habits have you implemented?
I challenge myself when I start doing negative self-talk to myself.
Oh, yes. Tell me about that. Yes.
Like we all have heard, comparison is the thief of joy. We're all human beings. We are all guilty of it at times. But if I catch myself doing it, I will pause and say, no, we're not going to do this right now. Because they are on a different chapter, on a completely different story than me. It's not supposed to be the same. I don't know what goes on in that person's life. And, you know, I've come a long way. Why am I trying to disrespect myself by comparing myself to somebody else? And that's not fair to them. They don't want that responsibility. I don't want somebody to look at my life and feel bad and compare themselves to me and tear themselves down. No, I don't do that to me.
Yeah, don't put that on me. Yeah, and that's like a big part of our world, right? With social media, we only see the highlights. We only see the best parts of people. And really what I've seen, so I at one point in my fitness journey was training for a bodybuilding competition. And that's where I actually started to shift away from aesthetics, and is when I realized how people pose to make their bodies look a certain way. I was like, holy shit, there's some form of illusion here. Like some of it's not real. And not to discredit bodybuilders, because they put a lot of work in to look that way. It takes a lot of work to build the muscle that Jodi has. But on the other side of that is like, we look at that and we're you know, like, well, I don't have that. And genetics play a big factor in it too, right? Not everybody's going to look the same. And that's the beautiful thing about being human. And the other side of that is like, you have no idea what that person's going through in other areas of life. So it's like, yeah. So do you have an actual dialogue with yourself in your mind? Is it like, hey, Jodi, you need to stop? Like, what does that look like for you?
It's usually like, we're going to stop doing this. But if it gets really bad, we just actually had one of my close friends on the last episode of Mindful Muscle, Samantha. Her and I have formed a bond because we both had our transformation journeys. We are both in the same fitness community. We will lean on each other for support. And we got to a point where we realized how common a lot of our insecurities were when it came to our own bodies. And then we were noticing other people that we knew in the community saying similar things, that we actually formed a positive body support group within our fitness community. Because I think a lot of us suffer with these issues in silence because we don't know how common it is, because nobody wants to talk about it. And I mean, talking about it won't make it go away, but normalizing makes you feel less isolated in the situation. And then when you have somebody to lean on, be like, hey, I'm feeling like crap. I'm looking in the mirror. I am seeing a different person. I'm not liking what I see. Talk me off the ledge. And we do that for each other.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really sweet that you have that accountability in your friends and in that group. You know, I think that's definitely a part that's missing in a lot of areas of life. I think we forget how important community is and how important that support system is, right? Humans are made to connect in that way. And it's so cool that you guys have found that. And I find that, you know, going back to the bodybuilder community, you know, we all look at these people with these ripped bodies and they have some of the most insecurities. They pick themselves apart because all these little things that they see, and we see this image of like perfection, right? And even like, so, you know, going back to your before and after picture, it's like someone would look at you and be like, how could you have insecurities about your body? You've transformed completely. Like, you are amazing, right? But it's like, we still have these thoughts and insecurities again, because we want to be a part of the group. We want to be accepted. We want to feel loved and all these things, connected. And so it's really easy to go down those paths. And the other side of that is like, a lot of those thought patterns, that worthiness, that whatever we think about ourselves, comes from an early age, right? So we talked about this earlier. It's like, some of these thoughts started really early, and you mentioned it. It's like, yeah, we don't think like that anymore. We're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And I do the same thing. So I like, when I start to have those self-sabotage thoughts, I'm like, hey, full stop. We're not thinking like that. And it's not always like easy, right? Sometimes we get caught in those spirals. Sometimes we overthink situations, but it's really super important, I think, to just observe one, and then come to the place where you can say, okay, we're not going to think like that. And then you rewrite the narrative, and then you start to find a way to think of yourself differently. I've struggled with anxiety as well. I struggled with mental health in a major way. So I love that you are an advocate of fitness for mental wellness. I think that's so important for people to understand how physically feeling good affects your mental health, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, all the things. So let's talk about, where are we on in time? Let's go in. Why don't you close this out? Let's tell, why don't you tell us about your podcast and where we can find you? And then we'll talk about getting started with the fitness journey.
We are on YouTube, Mindful Muscle Podcast, but we're also on Apple and Spotify. And we're also on Instagram, mindful_muscle_podcast. And we're welcome to, if people have questions when starting out, or Gio and I are more than willing to help. And you can contact us through Instagram or mindful.muscle.podcast@gmail.com.
Awesome. All right, Jodi, the last question I have for you is, so for someone who is just starting out on their fitness journey, what is one step they can take to walk towards their happy and healthy?
Sure. Different steps would be careful who you follow on social media.
Yes.
I cannot drive that point enough. I don't know if you saw, Shelby, but somebody stole one of my transformation pictures.
I did see that, yeah.
If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. It will take longer than people realize, but just focus on one step in front of the other, not the outcome in the long run. Because small steps forward add up big in the long run. You only really mess up or fail when you quit and give up on yourself. Nobody is 100%, 100% of the time. If you use the scale, make sure that it's not a measurement of your self-worth. If not, don't use the scale. If you can't look at it as just data, but also realize it's not going to go down every single day, and that's normal. And your behavior, your habits aren't going to go 100% every single day. Mine don't. I promise you, when I go on vacation, I eat whatever I want and I have no guilt about it. That's okay. There are no bad carbs. There are no bad macronutrients. The only bad foods are the ones you are personally allergic to or don't enjoy.
Awesome. But that is such great advice.
Focus on movement you enjoy. I like the 5-minute rule. If you cannot bring yourself to do a workout, just tell yourself 5 minutes. It might not seem like much, but sometimes we just need a little push. And then when we're doing it, it's not a big deal, but it's less overwhelming at the moment. And every time I've said that to myself, I've always exceeded 5 minutes, but sometimes it's just a little help that I need when I'm feeling especially anxious.
Oh, I love that. I love all of those things. Knowing who you're getting your information from, right? So just to touch on what Jodi's talking about, someone stole her photo and said that this transformation happened from this trainer. And Jodi, how quickly did you do this, Jodi? In 6 months?
7 months and 150 pounds. Okay. The most I weighed was 231 pounds. So 150-pound weight loss means I'm 81 pounds. And I'm not deadlifting and lifting tires at 81
No, absolutely not. And this person's also pushing supplements and all these things, right? So
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, be aware of who's selling you a dream and selling you a quick fix, because there is no quick fix to this, right? And
Yep.
just like Jodi was saying, like the baby step is the most important part. So sometimes I have my clients literally just put their shoes on and that's it. Just get
Mhm.
dressed for the gym. Literally just drive to the gym. You don't even have to go in the doors. And it's like take those little tiny steps
Yep.
and get a little braver each time and go a little bit further. And when you set those benchmarks for yourself, you tend to go a little bit further because you gain the motivation after the fact, right? You push
Yep.
yourself just a little bit and then you're like, oh shit, I can do more. There's more in
Yep.
me. I have more. So
I
cool.
think too, a lot of people overthink everything. They feel like they have to have everything figured out before they start. And overthinking is a form of self-sabotage. You
Hi.
cannot steer a parked car. And
Yeah.
it's okay if you don't have it 100% figured out. I am definitely like my fitness and nutrition today looks nothing like it did when I started. You can make changes along the way as you learn, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just take one little step, even if it's focusing on hydration or focusing on like putting your shoes on, going to the gym. I love that. Baby steps are so much less overwhelming at the time. I think a lot of people think they try to make all these huge changes. Like, I'm going to work out 2 hours a day every single day when you weren't doing any movement. I'm like,
Anything.
you're going to overwhelm yourself. You're going to get frustrated and you're going to give up real quick.
Yeah.
So little
Yeah.
small steps make a big difference in the long run.
Totally. Yes, yes, yes. I love that. Baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. That's what we're doing. All right, Jodi, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a guest on my podcast. I really, really
Sure.
appreciate you. And I'm really looking forward. Hopefully, we can do this again and dive deeper into your
Absolutely.
story. I would love to go more into the mental health aspect because I think that's such a missing part
Mhm.
in the fitness industry is understanding that physical fitness can lead us towards mental wellness. And you can take a holistic approach to your mental wellness. I love that you mentioned like therapy is good. I've been in therapy as well, and I think like being able to process those things and gain the tools along the way, and fitness is just another one of those tools. So again, thank you, Jodi. I appreciate you so much for being here.